Today we're going to talk about angles in geometry, how they're made, what they're made of. It's sort of long, so bear with us, and we'll get through it. All right? Angles are made up of pieces of lines. Okay? If I have a line, I'm going to put A right here, and I'm going to put B right there, and I'm going to put C right there. We can describe this, we've talked about, we can name that line AB. It's a line that goes through A and B. We can also name it line AC. It's a line that goes through A and C. We could also name it BC. And there's a few other names we could possibly give it. Okay? Alright? And we could also name segments. Segments, it would be BA. Okay? Segment BC, segment AC. Okay, we got them all. We've got the one that goes from B to C. We could flip that around. We got the one that goes from B to A. Flip that around. Also got the one that goes from A to C. So this is another way to name it. Now we can also name it. We can also have other pieces of this, and we call them rays. Now rays start at a point and go through another point. Okay? And the way we look at that is if we want to say, look at this right here, okay, a ray that starts at A and goes through C. And the picture that we draw on top of it, remember we have to draw this picture. This tells me you're talking about a line that goes through AB. This tells me you're talking about a line segment, a piece of a line that starts with B and ends with A. Okay, same thing here. This tells me you're talking about a piece of a line that starts at A and goes through C and keeps on going through C. Okay? So what would another ray be that we can put here? Starting at A. Correct? We can have a ray starts at A and goes through B. Some of you are saying, well, wait a minute, how come we don't put it up here like this and say, wow, it goes through there and it's like this? Because it has been agreed that we will always name our rays from the starting point, the end point, through the point that continues. Okay? Now, this ray starts at A, goes through C. This ray starts at A and goes through B. Okay? Now, get this out of our way. Okay? Always on a ray, the arrow, the picture goes to the right. This is always the end point. Okay? This right here, end point. Always. This right here goes through. Alright? Same thing here. This is the end point. End point goes through. Okay? Now, let's look at these rays. If we have some rays, got to catch up with it. If I race too fast, it just can't seem to catch up with it. Alright. Got that taken care of. Now, look at this one. Look at ray AC and ray AB. Tell me about these points A, B, C. B, A, and C are what? They're on the same line. What do we use for saying they're on the same line? They are collinear. Okay? Alright? Let's look at ray AB and ray AC. What do we notice about them? What do they have in common? They all both have the same endpoint, and they have points that are collinear. These are collinear rays. They also, even though it's not the way we show it, they're not, but AB starts here, goes to the left. AC starts in the same place and goes to the right. They are also opposite rays. They go in opposite directions. Okay? Opposite rays make a what? They make a line. Okay? Why? They have an endpoint. They go in opposite directions. They are collinear. Okay? Opposite rays that go in different directions make a line. We also, a line can be called a straight angle. Okay? A straight angle. So, now that we've talked about rays and we know what they look like, let's use them to create angles. I'm going to start here. Here's point A. I've got a ray up here, C. So I have a ray, AC. I have another ray, AB. Okay? These two rays together form an angle, and that angle, here's what we call it, angle, start on one end, C, A, B. Notice that the center, okay, is always in the center. The end point of the rays, this is the end point, A is the end point, is always in the center. Okay? The end point is always in the center of the name. Notice that if I come this way, AC is one of the sides. Side. Guess what? Ray AB is the side. A is the vertex. The common endpoint is the vertex. Okay? So when two rays come together with a common endpoint, one of the rays forms the side of the angle, the other ray forms the side of the angle. The endpoint that's common is called the vertex. Okay? Alright, let's talk a little bit more about these things. Let's come up with another angle. X, Y, Z. So what's this side over here going to be called? What is it? What's the name of that? Right? It's going to be ray X, Z. What's this one going to be called? It's going to be ray X, Y. What's the vertex? This is the side. This is the side. Vertex is X. Okay? Vertex is X. Now, an angle divides a plane into three parts. An angle lies in a plane. Angle always lies inside of one plane. Angle is always going to have an inside, which we call the interior. It has an outside, which is called the exterior. And then there is the angle itself. And this angle is known as angle Z, X, Y. We could also call it angle Y, X, Z. Notice that this vertex is always in the center. We can also name it by the vertex as long as there's no confusion. Okay? There's only one angle we're talking about, and we always talk about the interior of the angle. We never talk about the exterior of the angle when we're naming it. So we're going to call this That could also be angle X. I could also give it a number. Okay? I could say that's angle 4. So we could also call it angle 4. So there's multiple ways to name an angle. Name it by its sides. Start with point that's on this side. The vertex is always in the center of the name. Okay? So Z, X, Y, or vice versa, Y, X, Z. We can name it by its vertex as long as there's not any other angle that we might get in trouble with. Okay? We can also name it by a number that we give it. Okay? An angle divides a plane into 3 parts. The interior, the exterior, and the angle itself. Okay? Alright. Need to go on. Next thing we need to talk about an angle is types of angles we can have. If we have an angle that the measure of that angle is 90 degrees, and we sail this like this, this is known as a right angle. Okay? The way we say the measure of angle L, M, N equals 90 degrees. Okay? This is a right angle. You can also have an angle A, B, C. Okay? This angle, angle A, B, C, would be known as an obtuse angle because the measure of angle ABC is less than 90 degrees. Okay? This is called acute. This is an acute angle. Alright? You can also have another angle type. X, Y, Z. Measure of angle X, Y, Z is greater than 90, and we call that obtuse. It's an obtuse angle. Okay? So we have 3 types of angles that we can look at. We can have those angles that equal 90 degrees. Here's a symbol that we say that makes that. If you see this in a corner of an angle, that lets you know that is a right angle. Or the measure of that angle can be less than 90 degrees and it's acute. And that angle can be greater than 90 degrees and we call it obtuse. How do I remember this? Right? You just got to know. Acute, oh, it's a cute little angle. Obtuse, it's just big. Alright? How do we measure angles? Well, here we go. What's this little symbol mean? We measure them in degrees. Okay? We measure angle in degrees. Now, we've also talked about another angle, which is made by opposite rays. Okay? Where we can have R, S, and T. Call this a straight angle. It's a line. It equals 180 degrees. It's a line. A line is the same thing as a straight angle. It equals 180 degrees. Okay? What do we measure angles in? We measure them in degrees. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about is how we name them. This is angle A, B, C. Or we can name it angle C, B, A. It doesn't matter. Now, remember how we had picture of a line segment? Okay? For instance, we can say right here that we have segment BC. Okay? This is a picture of a line segment. We could also say that we had BC. This is a measurement. Okay? This means measure. This is a picture that tells us this is a picture of a line segment. We also said that if BC, the measure of BC, equaled the measure of BA, we can have this. BC is congruent to BA. Alright? Picture is congruent to picture. Or we can say that the measure of BC equals the measure of BA. Okay? Congruent pictures. Okay? Equal measures. Alright? Understand the difference? Okay, now we're going to use those on angles. How do we tell the difference? How do we tell we got congruent angles? How do we tell we have equal angles? Okay, we're going to come back and we're going to put these angles back up here. Let's put A in the middle. B. If you'll notice, I'm using different letters for the angles. This is angle BAC, or we can call it angle CAB. What's always in the center? The vertex is always in the center. Let's have another angle over here. Let's call it XYZ. So this name would be angle YXZ. Notice the vertex is in the center. Or angle ZXY. Okay? I'm going to make a mark on these angles, and I'm going to say this angle right here measures the same as this. Okay? Two angles that measure the same are congruent. So how would we say that? Angle BAC is congruent to angle YXZ. Okay? Remember, this is a picture. Picture of an angle tells us we've got an angle named BAC. We've got an angle that's named YXZ. They can be congruent. When we say that two angles are congruent, that means that their measures are equal. How do we say measure? For angles, we put a little m in front of it, and it says that means that the measure of angle BAC is equal to the measure of angle YXZ. This is equal. Equal measure. Okay? Congruent pictures. Congruent actually means that we can put that picture on top of each other. If we were to swing this around, and this may not happen on this one, but when we were to swing this around, if they are congruent, we can actually lay that picture on top of the other one and they disappear into each other. This is what we need to do. The measures of an angle, we put a little m in front of it. We can make measures because they represent numbers equal to each other. The picture, or what represents the angle, can be congruent. Now, congruent angles have equal measures. Angles with equal measures are also congruent. Okay? All right, that's an awful lot about angles.